Hello, everyone. First of all, allow me to thank the organizers of the CARE conference, especially Peter, for the opportunity to present today and share some of my research. I also appreciate your time and interest in this session. Today, I'm going to talk about the company's voluntary adoption of sustainability standards, its causes, and consequences. So, as we are all aware, these days we face extremely difficult and pressing problems related to climate change, human rights, diversity and inclusion, and other sustainability matters. These problems increase the demand for sustainability information. Market participants nowadays are not just interested in understanding how much in profits companies make, they are also interested in understanding what are the externalities of companies' businesses and operations. This growing demand for sustainability information changed the corporate reporting landscape, where now more than 80% of the largest companies in the world report on sustainability. To meet investor needs, companies adopt various frameworks for sustainability frameworks and standards, including GRI, including SASB standards or TCFD guidelines. So in today's presentation, I'm going to discuss the role of sustainability standards. Specifically, I will address the issue: what role do voluntary standards play for sustainability reporting and sustainability actions? It's not easy to answer this question because most of prior research on standards and standard mandate related to your normal traditional financial reporting, that prior research focuses on the standards that were mandated. So the setting of voluntary standards is very rare and unstudied, which makes it a unique and interesting setting to examine. So my co-authors and we address the question of voluntary sustainability standards by studying the development process and firms' adoption of sustainability standards by SASB. I will briefly cover, with no research details, just briefly cover two recent working papers that I have. One is co-authored with Jeffrey Hales and George Serafine, and the other one is co-authored with Seokju Choi and Jeffrey Hales as well. In those, if you're interested in more details about our research, empirical approach, and more details about the results, you can find the papers on SSRN, or you can just email me and I will be more than willing to share the papers with you via email. So what do we do? What do we do in the papers? We studied, as I mentioned, the development process of SASB standards. So very briefly, as you may know, and as highlighted in the Economist snippet that I shared with you earlier, SASB standards in recent years have been widely recognized by companies and investors as main sustainability reporting resource. SASB as an organization was formed in 2011, and it took several years, starting in 2012 and ending in 2018, to develop the provisional SASB standards, which were later finalized and approved in November 2018. Key features of the standards include investor focus, industry specificity, thorough market-based research to develop the standards, and explicit quantitative and qualitative metrics and measures to report on ESG matters that are relevant to the company and its industry. As of July 1st this year, SASB and its standards became part of the International Sustainability Standards Board, with the goal to create a comprehensive global baseline for sustainability reporting. So we use the development of SASB standards in our research as a setting, right, to examine whether the development process of SASB standards changed the topic, the focus of managers towards ESG matters. We use release to study that. We use the release dates of SASB provisional standards during the period 2013 through 2016, and we examine corporate communications in earnings conference calls. We find that following the release of SASB standards, managers start talking more about ESG matters that were identified in the standards, and investors and analysts inquire more about these issues. We interpret this finding as evidence that SASB standards served as a coordinating device to facilitate sustainability related communication between managers and investors. We also find that this increase in ESG discussion is particularly prominent among firms that provided little or no ESG discussion prior in the time period where there were no SASB standards. And we interpret this result again as evidence that SASB standards help to coordinate this conversation on relevant sustainability matters. We also find that the increase is particularly prominent for industries with high disagreement around ESG reporting. And again, this is the evidence of standards serving as a coordinating device for sustainability reporting. Next, we examine formal adoption of SASB standards, where companies do not just discuss ESG matters using words, but also disclose relevant sustainability metrics to demonstrate how they are managing these issues. So in this case, for this analysis, our time period is 2015 through 2020. This is a time period where we observed that firms started adopting SASB standards and using them in their sustainability reports. We have 24 US adopters in 2015, 32 in 2016, and that number keeps increasing and reaches 492 adopters in 2020. Our focus here is to understand what factors prompt firms' decisions to voluntarily adopt sustainability standards by SASB, and more importantly, what are the consequences of such adoption. With regard to the consequences, we compare ESG performance of SASB adopters relative to that of non-adopters and trying to match all other characteristics that firms have. In other words, we have company A that is very comparable to company B. The only thing that differs is company A adopted SASB standards, company B didn't. So we compare whether there are differences in ESG performance for those companies. We also compare ESG performance of SASB adopters only just to see whether there is difference in the pre-period versus the post-period after the SASB adoption. We find our results demonstrate that there is a gradual shift from non-adoption to SASB standards referencing to full reporting of SASB metrics, and this indicates that implementing this and reporting following SASB standards, it takes time, right? Because you need to develop the measurement system to begin reporting. We also find that industry peer pressure, focus of institutional investors on sustainability, firm size, financial performance, sustainability performance are among the main drivers of the adoption of SASB standards. And these results are consistent with our prior conversations with several chief sustainability officers of major corporations. In terms of consequences, we find that compared to non-adopters, adopters of SASB standards have lower ESG incidence, lower pollution levels, lower work-related injuries, and higher ESG ratings in years following the standards adoption. And we also find similar results when we only look at SASB adopters and examine them in the post-period relative to the pre-adoption period. I already mentioned the industry specificity of SASB standards. So we take this industry specificity and examine our results cross-sectionally to check whether we observe stronger results among industries that for which workplace safety and pollution levels were identified as material issues by SASB. And we find evidence of that. This result gives us comfort that our results indeed reflect the consequences of the SASB standards adoption rather than something else. In the remaining minute or so, I would like to summarize, to give a brief summary of my presentation. So what we do, we study the implications of voluntary sustainability standards by SASB. Focusing on corporate communications in earnings conference calls, in a large sample of earnings conference calls, we first find that firms increase their discussion of ESG matters following the release of SASB's provisional standards. Later, as a second consequence of the standards, we find that firms start adopting SASB standards by formally reporting on ESG metrics that were identified in the standards. Focusing on that as an event, we find evidence of improvement in ESG performance following the SASB standards adoption. So that evidence, even if voluntary, we find evidence of what gets measured, gets managed. We consider this result as a first initial step in favor of mandating sustainability reporting. As we all know, this is a highly debated topic in these days, and we hope our paper provides some initial support, some initial result for that next step in sustainability reporting landscape. Thank you so much for your time. It has been a pleasure to join the conference.